Welcome to the Problematic Gaze with me, Dr. Lee Arnott.
And me, Dave Moore.
Each episode, we will take a piece of British and sometimes international pop culture from the last 60 years and examine it through the problematic lens. Is it problematic? If it is, what does it say about society and culture then? And what does it say about society and culture now?
And before we take a deep dive into our chosen topic, we'll try to put it into context by having a look at what was happening in the world at the time, what was going on in the news, what was happening on TV or film, and have a scour of the pop charts to see what the nation was singing along to.
And before we go any further, don't forget to check out and follow our socials at Podcast Gaze, G-A-Z-E, on X and Instagram, where we'll be posting all the links to our chosen topics, and also we'll post links to things we might chat about throughout the podcast. Feel free to leave a comment and let us know your thoughts on any points we might raise. And if you can think of a subject you feel might be fun to cover, then all suggestions are most welcome.
And please don't forget to like and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you feel so inclined, leave a review.
How's your week been now, Dave?
I've been really good. I've been preparing for my trip to New York in about 3 weeks' time for my birthday, my big 3-0.
Oh, yes, it's a surprise party. That's right. Yeah, which hundreds of people are going to see you in Times Square. No, they're not really. Since someone has vetoed, rather selfishly, a surprise party for their birthday.
Yeah, I'm a bit partied out, to be honest. We had a big party for our wedding and big party for my other half 50th. So for this one, I just thought, you know what? I don't want any surprise parties. Oh, no, I had one for my 40th. I'm not 30, by the way. I'm 50. So I just thought, let's take ourselves away. Let's go somewhere. And then I was surprised with a trip to New York. I'm a very, very lucky boy. I want to go to the theatre at some point, but the prices are absolutely astronomical for theatre in New York. So I thought, well, I can go to the theatre anytime. I want to do stuff that's off the beaten track this time. I have been lucky enough to go to New York a couple of times before, so I feel like I've done all the box ticking, the major sites, etc. So I want to kind of just go off the beaten track, see where it takes us. But we're going in the middle of August, so I think New York in the middle of August is pretty scorchio. So
we've all seen the Cruel Summer video by Bananarama, David, so I'm expecting that's to be recreated.
Where was that filmed? All over New York?
Yeah, I think one particular part of the river, by the river. I think on the other side from where the World Trade Center used to be, the other side of the river, that's where they filmed it.
Near the piers.
Yes. And they just danced around there for a bit.
I'll have to look at that video, see where it was filmed, and then do a little recreation for you and send it to you.
Thank you.
And also,
one for the socials, I suspect.
Yes. Nobody wants to see me on a bloody social. Also, I think it'd be quite nice to go and see where Madonna was in Desperately Seeking Susan when they were on the pier. Do you remember?
I've not seen it.
You've never seen Desperately Seeking Susan?
Sorry. Oh.
Why are we friends?
Listener, if you could see his little face, it's so disappointed. It's like his whole world is just gone. Just gone.
Do you remember when we watched The Brits when Madonna fell down the stairs?
Oh, do you know? Actually, that's what your face is like again now. A couple of years. When was it, Dave? What year did Madonna fall down the stairs at The Brits?
I think it was 2016. I think 2015, okay. 2016.
We were living together in the flat in Kensal Rise, beautiful flat, and David had been like a hen in a hot girdle for weeks because obviously it was Madonna's comeback. Was it a comeback? She hadn't been around for a while. It was her first appearance at the Brits for a long time. It was going to be huge, and the build-up, the excitement, and bless his little cotton socks. He was like a little child on Christmas Eve. And then when the unthinkable happened, and Madonna basically fell off the stairs and landed with a really undignified thud on her arse. His little face, it was broken, and he looked at me and he went, "What's going to happen now?" It was so, God, I was trying really hard not to absolutely piss myself laughing. But
that's God, that's because you're a really horrible person.
Yeah, maybe I am. I mean, it was funny. Come on.
It wasn't funny. All I remember thinking was the world kind of, that contra zoom in Jaws?
Yes. Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah.
Like, I felt as though a camera was zooming towards my face and the world slowed down and it was in
Yeah.
slow motion.
Yeah.
And I just remember shouting at the TV, "Get up! Get up! Get up!" And then she got up and I went to you, and that's why she's the queen.
But let me just say, it didn't sound nowhere near as authoritative as David's just made that. It was more like, that's why she's a queen. More like that, really. There was no sass, David. Come on. We're among friends.
That was my inner monologue anyway.
Yes, yes. Well, guess what I've done this week?
Go on.
I went clubbing.
Was it one of them special old people's clubs where they start at 1 in the afternoon and finish at 5?
No, I wish it had been, to be fair, because I was absolutely destroyed yesterday. No, I went to a memorial service for a very dear colleague who tragically died, well, sadly, relatively recently. And there were a lot of people that I hadn't seen for years. Some of them were like decades, people I used to work with. And it was really nice. It was lovely. It was in Clapham. Obviously, much wine was had, and then much rum was had, and much holding court was done. And then, I don't know what time it was, I came out and I went, you know what? I'm going to go to a club. So I took myself off to the Puff Bar in Clapham, found myself a new social circle of friends. There's 4 or 5 students who are all about 2022. Obviously, I was belle of the ball, danced my backside off until we got kicked out, went back to theirs, carried on the party, crawled home at 8 o'clock this morning. And yesterday morning, I had a fantastic night. Honestly, it was great.
I would need 3 days to recover from that, at least.
I needed 1. And let me tell you, if somebody had said to me 3 days before, okay, after this thing on Friday, I'm going to go clubbing, I'd have gone, nah, fuck off. It only worked because it was spontaneous, it was unplanned, the wind was in the right direction. I was pretty close to the actual club itself. I didn't have to get on a bus and go anywhere. It was just there. And I had a great time. Still got it, love.
Fantastic. And what was the music like?
New music? Couldn't honestly say. It just had a good beat.
No Bananarama then?
No Bananarama. There was a couple of classics in one of the rooms. Oh, I was on the stage dancing. I was giving it jip. I'm quite impressed that yesterday I could actually physically move my body and I wasn't like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz.
I always think that those kind of spontaneous things, if you have a really good time, regardless of the amount of alcohol you drink or whatever you do, ultimately the next day, because you feel so good about what you did and it wasn't as though you were dragged there under duress and it wasn't as though you weren't enjoying yourself. I just think that really aids the hangover through the next day.
I think you're absolutely right. Also, not smoking. I've stopped smoking. What a difference to a hangover, not smoking. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
I don't want to go on about not smoking, but it's almost so much nicer when you don't smoke.
Yeah.
So, yeah, get me with the kids, love. Still got it, babe. Still got it.
I just picture you going up to the DJ stand and going, "Got it, Kylie."
Okay. Have you got any box fish?
But you didn't do that, so that's good. Well done.
I didn't do that. Partly because I couldn't work out where the DJ was. Might be the only reason I didn't do that. But there we go. It was great fun. Great fun.
Probably just someone sat in the cloakroom on their iPhone, Spotify.
No, it was a big club. Stop belittling and diminishing my clubbing experience, please. It was a proper club. It wasn't like the back room of some lavvy. Thank you. 3 floors, the whole kit caboodle, lights, music.
I certainly wouldn't belittle your life experiences because I live vicariously through you anyway.
Yes, you do. That's very, very fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like to hear all about what you're doing. Well, I'm sat here in the country with my crochet.
Well, yeah.
Let's crack on, shall we? Carry on, girls. Okay, Carry On Girls, one of the Carry On films.
Yes, yeah, from 1973.
How did we access this? Where did we watch it?
Well, excitingly, David, it was the first time we've actually watched something together. We watched it on BritBox. So it is on BritBox if you have BritBox. Although BritBox is it's closing very soon.
Yes, it is. Isn't it? It's going over to
Yeah,
ITV
it'll be
X.
on. Yeah, it'll be on ITV X. But that's
Yeah,
where we watched it, and it was fun.
it was fun.
We should probably point out that we did have a glass of wine or two, which may have helped what you're about to hear. Explain what you're about to hear from us.
Just recovered from my 2-day hangover because obviously this 49-year-old body just can't take alcohol as well as it used to be able to. So,
and it was that impromptu Sugar Babes concert in the kitchen we did at 2 a.m., darling. That was
the night before. Oh no, that was after, wasn't it? It's all a bit of a blur, to be honest. There was Carry On Films and the Sugar Babes and a bit of Bananarama thrown in for measure.
By all accounts, not a vintage year for the Carry On franchise. You know, we're definitely coming to the fag end of the whole studio output, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. For people who've lived under a rock and don't know what Carry On Films, shall we just have a little kind of general overview before we...
Or from anybody outside the UK, because they weren't huge outside the UK. They're very UK specific. They were a series of hugely popular films from the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, which were comedy films set in various scenarios or situations. So you could have Carry On Spy, Carry On Cabby, or some of the early ones. Then they go through to Carry On Dick, which is all about Dick Turpin, I think. Yeah. Carry On Screaming. Carry On Doctor, Carry On Matron, Carry On Nurse, you know. And each film, there's lots of sexual innuendo. There's lots of, it's just very, very obvious humor, isn't it? Yeah. There's boobs, there's jiggles, there's near nudity, mainly on women, older women henpecking their husbands, all this kind of, there's similar tropes which were part of the culture then, you know, that women are there to be patted and prodded and poked and have their boobs.
So it was all kind of a comic observation of the British way of life at the time, wasn't it?
They were very much a working class phenomenon because, as you said, the humour is quite coarse. It's a bit obvious. This film was released in 1973. Should we have a little look at what was happening in the world of 1973?
Yes, let's do it.
We have looked at 1973 in another episode, actually.
We have, haven't we? What were we watching?
I think it was Man About the House.
Yes, so we have done 1973 before, but I mean, there's plenty of things to look at. Okay, so in January 1973, the Vietnam War came to an end. Or the US involvement in the Vietnam War ends with the signing of the Paris Peace Accord.
We opened the air by joining the EEC. You know, that's a fairly major event, the repercussions of which are still being felt to this day. I'd noticed that Northern Ireland is really kicking off in 1973. And it is one of the bloodiest years of the Troubles. It's just hideous. It's one of the worst years. And then Bloody Sunday happens and the violence just accelerates and it's really, really horrific.
You were born in 1973, weren't you?
Yes, that's the other huge international event, obviously. That's not on Wikipedia for some reason.
It's a glaring omission.
Not even in the notable births.
I know. My mum and dad were married in 1973 and then I was born in 1974. I have done the maths. There is more than a 9-month period in between those two events.
Oh, well, I'm in all the wedding photos. My mother's huge in her wedding pictures. Is enormous. So I'm in the photographs with them, just inside me, ma'am.
Okay, there must be more stuff that happened. I mean, there's a lot of air crashes.
There are a lot of air
various
crashes.
Revolutions, etc.
Yeah, it's quite a turbulent year for the world, I think.
Something that did happen, talking about Battle of the Sexes, etc. September the 20th, Billie Jean King defeats Bobby Riggs in a singles tennis match, billed as the Battle of the Sexes.
And he was such an arsehole before it. He's like, yeah, of course I'm going to beat her. Of course I'm going to beat her. Didn't put any effort in. He was like an old pro, an old vet. Then she beat him. And now usually we talk about what's on TV at the time, but given we're talking about a film, there were some pretty big films out this year.
Starting with number 9, Live and Let Die, James Bond. Loved that one. That was Jane Seymour, wasn't it?
Me too. Yes, Solitaire. It's quite problematic these days, that one. It's representations of voodoo culture. Solitaire is as much used as a sponge leg. I mean, there's another one in the top highest grossing film, Last Tango in Paris. That's another really dodgy film these days. Probably enlivened by the very famous scene where she is anally raped after Marlon Brando puts butter on her backside. Yeah. Only recently has it come to light that the actress had no idea this was going to happen and was basically raped on camera. Really, really fucking unpleasant. One of my favourite ever films this year, The Exorcist. I just absolutely adore The Exorcist.
The first time I saw The Exorcist, I couldn't sleep for about the next 3 nights. How a film could have such a singular effect on a person. Oh my God. And I can't even watch it now. I just can't, just
Right.
because of the connotations of it. I mean, I know it's a story, I know it didn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
but even so, I mean, that's a testament to how well made the film is, to have
Yes.
such a profound
Yes.
effect on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I loved it. My mum, I didn't realize, but my mum couldn't look at me for the first 6 months of my life because she was frightened because my head was going to start spinning around in my cot. It freaked
Really?
her out. Really. My nana was a big horror film fan, which is where I get it from. And my mum had said, "Do you want me to take you to see The Exorcist?" And she said, "Man, I was like, yeah, great." And my mum was like, "If you get scared," she said, "because there's stories of people fainting, throwing up." She says, "We can just leave." My mother said, "I couldn't look at the screen. There was bits when the head was spinning around. I thought I was going to throw up. I thought I was going to pass out." Your nana was just sitting there peeling an apple throughout the whole
Uh,
thing, just like going, "This is quite good, isn't it?"
uh,
Loved it. That's it's in my blood. The Exorcist, just a great film. And there's
yeah,
some of the little trends I noticed, like Enter the Dragon is a huge film of 1973, which is
yeah.
the one of the Bruce Lee's. That's going to usher in a kung fu craze, which we'll see Hammer Horror doing their own kung fu vampire film a year after. Don't forget, everybody was kung fu fighting. That's going to be a hit a year later. And My Own Name is a little more Bruce Lee because he was a huge star, and Lee was just a nice name that my mother thought you could put for a boy or a girl. So
Oh.
maybe that's why my gender identity's so fucked up, mother.
Uh,
Now, I haven't looked at this music chart at all, so I'm quite excited about what was on the
Prepare
music
yourself to be glossing
charts.
over the number one slot again for the second
Oh,
time in
really? We've got another.
1973.
What's wrong with Britain and number one? Oh my God, I've just seen it. Oh God, we've got the Gary Glitter up the Gary Glitter at number one with I Love You, Me Love. Oh, never
Wasn't he
mind.
number one last time we did this in 1973?
I, maybe there's a lot of teenies in here. Donny Osmond, The Osmonds, David Cassidy, Carpenters, bless.
Yeah, Top of the World, number seven, The Carpenters. That's
Yeah,
played that at my wedding.
yes, you did.
There's a lot of stuff that hasn't stood the test of time, but there are some gems if we scroll down far enough.
Mhm.
Still slowing down. Okay, Caroline by Status Quo at number 20. Right, that holds a special place in my heart
Right.
because I remember my dad. I mean, it wasn't in obviously 1973 because I wasn't born, but about 1980, my dad was in a local band called Electras. Dad played lead guitar.
Oh,
It was like a
bless.
local band in Scarborough, and one Christmas
Was it like creme brulee, David? Was it
it
like
was
creme
it was
brulee?
a bit creme brulee, but cooler than that because my dad was in it, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
And they dressed up as Santa Claus, and they played outside Marks and Spencer one Christmas to
Oh.
raise money for charity. And they played this song, and I've got a really vivid memory of watching my dad play this song. I was very proud of him. So it's like, that's my
Very
dad.
proud.
Yeah. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road at number 19, Elton.
Not Bush City Limits. Kiki D's in there, the song I don't know. There's lots. Tie Yeah, the room around the old oak tree is floating around. It's a really mixed bag, isn't it? The old My Cuckoo, Alvin Stardust,
Ballroom
Pink
Blitz, the Sweet.
Roses.
Yeah.
What?
Ballroom Blitz, the Sweet. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I mean,
probably
not
good.
not a vintage.
Yeah, not a vintage week. Yes, you're right. Do you want to talk us through what happens in this film, David?
Okay. So the seaside town of Firkham.
I didn't get that when we first watched it.
Yeah,
I thought it was a fur comb, but of course you then
I
said no,
thought
it's Faircombe.
it's
Faircombe. Fuckham. Yeah,
Firkham. But
yeah.
I thought it was kind of combing hair for.
A merkin.
Yeah. Okay, right. Glossing over that one then. The seaside town of Firkham. Maybe this humour's just too sophisticated for us.
Maybe it is. That's why we didn't get it.
Yeah. Seaside town of Firkham is facing a crisis. It's always raining and there's nothing to do for the tourists. So Councillor Sidney Fiddler, played by
I
St
mean,
James, hits on the notion of holding a beauty contest. The mayor, Frederick Bumble, played by Kenneth Connor, is taken with the idea, but feminist councillor Augusta Prodworthy, June Whitfield, is outraged and storms the meeting. To cut a long story short, they decide to hold this beauty pageant. All the beautiful girls, the contestants come in and take up residence in this hotel. That's run by
Joan Sims.
Yeah, various hilarity ensues, and the beauty pageant is held, but then it's sabotaged by June Whitfield and her band of women's lib protesters.
Yeah. Then at the end, for some random reason, Barbara Streisand, Barbara Windsor, and Sid James drive off on a motorbike together.
That's
For the
correct.
end. The end.
Yes.
Yes. Very odd.
It kind of contains all the elements of a carry-on film, which is leering pervy, dirty old men,
Yeah.
buxom women in various states of undress, the old hag characters.
Yeah, there's an old harridan who's invariably either neglectful of her husband or who henpecks her husband. There's often a randy old lady present as well. They sometimes have a sometimes overtly gay, sometimes not overtly gay character. Oh my God, was there just in this one?
Uh-huh.
There's also usually a super glamorous woman. Sometimes a bit of cross-dressing. But yeah, well, what did you think of this film?
I felt it was fun. I enjoyed it. I mean, I think a bit of a nostalgia trip, isn't it? It's kind of, it reminds you of your childhood when you watch films and you just thought they were the best things since sliced bread. And you kind of return to them and look at them and think, well, actually, this isn't as good as I thought it was. But I think as far as a carry-on film goes, it kind of ticked all the boxes.
Yeah, it did. I actually found it quite amusing in some parts. Clearly, there were problematic parts to it, but it wasn't as offensive as I thought I was going to find it. What I really thought was interesting was seeing how Carry On dealt with feminism. This is a direct response to when the women's lib movement hijacked the Miss World contest that was being held at the Albert Hall in 1970. There were some great documentaries out there about this, which is really interesting. But in a nutshell, basically, the Miss World competition, which was huge, it's a wonder the inhabitants of Furkham want to hold a beauty contest because they get big audiences. I mean, 20 million people are watching Miss World on telly. But the rise of women's liberation, especially in the kind of febrile late 60s, basically a lot of women going, well, why are women being paraded like this? It's just that all there is their beauty and their bodies. And so they infiltrate the 1970 contest that's being held and being hosted by Bob Hope, huge star, obviously.
At the Albert Hall.
Yes, and they start to throw flower bombs. They start to throw paper around. They make lots of noise. They really disrupt it. He's ushered off the stage. And obviously it causes a huge stink. This is women's liberation actually literally invading the living room of the viewer. And what was really nice about the story is that the contestants actually looked out for the protesters, wanted to make sure they got out safely and stuff. So there's a real kind of the sisterhood in action from all sides of it in that. So this film is kind of a direct response to that. And we see, as you said, in the final beauty contest that this sabotaging in a similar way is done by the women's lib movement of Furkham. And I just think it's a really interesting little snapshot of how women's lib has been represented in the mainstream by 1973. Just to tangent off to Doctor Who, as you know I always do, at the end of 1973, Doctor Who will have its first women's lib companion who openly says, I am a feminist, in the form of Sarah Jane Smith, journalist. One other thing is it's super interesting seeing that the feminists are not pictured or portrayed as mustachioed harridans. And ultimately, the feminists win. And I was surprised, actually, how much of the message of feminism was actually contained with this film.
Yeah.
Do you want to? You're going to talk about the mayor and his wife, just their relationship.
So the mayor's wife is played by Patsy Rowland, who I just think is a phenomenal actor, and the mayor's played by Kenneth Connor, and they've obviously got a really kind of fractious relationship. The wife is fed up of them.
Loveless.
The husband, the mayor, is portrayed as this kind of bumbling. Well, he's called Mr. Bumble, just bumbling old fool. The wife is played as just kind of like this fed up woman, superiorly intelligent to the husband, and has been downtrodden and has played the part of the mayoress, played the part of the dutiful wife for years and years and years, and just finally just kind of snaps, and it's just like, for God's sake, I've had enough of this. And it's kind of like her journey into liberating herself from that loveless marriage as well, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah. And she joins the women's lib movement, and they have their burning the bra ceremony, which is famously what American feminists were doing. I don't know, in the late 60s, the bra seen as a symbol of oppression, patriarchal oppression. So again, I thought that journey was really interesting to show how she became how she became a feminist, and
Yeah.
That was a very scary message for men at the time, that women were coming into the workplace more. Their jobs, male jobs, are seeming to be being withering on the vine. So to have a message like this in a carry-on film, I found really surprising it was
Yeah.
there.
I mean, they could have portrayed all the women as unpleasant, hardcore
Arrogant.
feminists, couldn't they?
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
they didn't. I mean, they sent them up the same way as they send every character up, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
There wasn't any malice in the humour directed at the women's libbers, was there?
No, not at all. Not at all. That was refreshing, actually.
Okay, can we talk about Mr. Cecil Gaybody, who was the guy brought in as the television director of the pageant? That was, it was obviously being
Yeah.
televised. What do you think about him?
Well, he's another camp gay man to be laughed at, isn't he?
Yeah,
They call him Gay Boy at one point.
yeah.
He's got the neck scarf on. He's Mr. Humphreys in another version.
That's just one of those tropes that is just, when you look at it now, it's just, there's no getting around the fact that it's just really problematic and quite disappointing at the time. And,
Yes.
To be a gay man in that time, to see the way that you're being portrayed on screen, it must have been really disappointing.
Yeah, but as we've discussed before, that was the portrayal of gay men in 1973, camp, effeminate, flouncy. I was struck by some of the language, and we've talked about this being. I mean, I can't believe I've said that Carry On Girls is a feminist film, because actually, within it, there is so much which is just wrong. Male characters talk about women. That's the way to deal with women. Treat them rough, says Fiddler at one point. She'll come back. They always do. Women's fundamental weakness, they never know when to stop. There's all these little things peppered throughout it, which is, again, okay, it's Sid James's character doing them, and ultimately his plans will come to nothing, although he will get to drive off into the sunset with Barbara Windsor on the back of a bike. But again, it's just, I mean, the way women are talked about, but also the way women are touched in this film.
Oh, God.
Just,
yeah. The amount of bottom slapping going on.
Yeah, and always with a comedy, that swanee whistle noise when the old admiral like groped someone's arse, or it was just like, oh God, stop it.
But actually, what struck me about that was it was very much the old guard of male that was doing that.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I don't know if that was trying to send them up. This is acceptable for the older generation, but not for the younger one. And in fact, actually, Robin Asquith, who played like the young photographer, was actually quite respectful towards the women, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
So I just wonder if that was like a crossing of a mantle there as well.
But there's still the message, though, that men are allowed to do that. And actually, the dirty old man, Sid James, gets to ride off with Barbara Windsor at the end. You know, he still do what he wants. Even though he's in a relationship with Joan Sims.
There was obviously the cat fight between the Bucks and Blondes, where various items of clothing just got slowly removed, etc.
Absolutely. Which is, again, a very male message to portray women in conflict with each other. The idea that women work together and do stuff together, which is actually one of the, again, unusual about this film, in that it shows you these women working together in order to plot the downfall of the beauty contest.
Yeah.
There is another quite problematic element, which is when the Bernard Bresslaw character decides to impersonate a woman to become part of the contest. And Bernard Bresslaw is 6'5", right? A hairy man. And he's obviously a bloke in a frock with a wig on. Terrible. But for some reason, the story dictates that no one suspects him at all.
Well, I didn't mind that so much, because that was just kind of like the element of farce there, wasn't it? It's obviously, this is just so unbelievable. It's actually quite funny.
Yeah. I guess, but then it does get quite problematic when they're talking about, has he committed some kind of a crime? And at one point they refer to his character as it. There's just a few things which is just a little bit like, and obviously, trans theory is in its infancy at this point. So again, think of Dick Henry on TV at the time, dressed as that one honky tonk, I think, although that was the gay guy. He did the camp gay guy, another one. So a man dressed as you say, a man dressed in a frock would just be a comedy effect. But I suspect if you got younger people watching the film now, they'd be like, what the actual fuck is going on?
Yeah.
What is wrong with these people?
Yeah.
It's just quite astonishing that the script dictated that nobody suspected him at
Yeah.
all.
So yeah, there's a moment where the June Whitfield character says to one of the policemen, "Is there no law against a man masquerading as a woman?" And the police says that would be an offence.
So transvesticism, this guy, but at this point they would be called a transvestite,
Yeah.
is seen as not necessarily a gay man who likes to dress up in women's clothing in order to get sexual gratification. And it's seen as a porphyria, a mental illness at this point. Oh, and as I said, the bit where they said it's in there when they're looking for him. And at one point, the old admiral is trying to touch him up as well. I will keep referring to Bernard Bessel in the dress as him because he's quite clearly represented as a him.
Yes.
And afterwards, after he bats him off, he comes out and he says, "I nearly got raped by a sex-starved admiral." And it was like, oh God, that's so all in the name of comedy. It's like, and I think it's really important that we have to keep remembering to look at this. If we were young people who'd never heard of a Carry On before, what they would say, and they'd be absolutely horrified by some of the stuff that we might classify as a bit of fun. Although this bit did make me very uncomfortable. There's almost kind of a witch hunt, like a lynch mob, looking for what is effectively a trans figure in this film, and it was just a bit, I didn't really like it.
Yeah. So tell me about Valerie Leon, who played Bernard Bessel's dowdy girlfriend, who then transformed into this magnificent
Amazon. Yeah. Well, she's Paula. This is another classic trope of the time when you get a buttoned up, straight-laced looking woman with her hair tied up and some glasses on to make her look clever, using a secretarial role. And then, lo and behold, they let the hair fall down, rip the glasses off, and it's like, why, Miss Jones, suddenly you're so attractive. And exactly this transformation happens to Valerie Leon, who incidentally is dubbed by June Whitfield in this film.
Yes.
There's a particularly heinous thing at the time of dubbing the lead actresses in movies. Horror films do. Hammer Horror does it all the time. Most of the women in The Wicker Man are dubbed. For some reason, I don't know why. The male actors can use their own voices, but the female actors, nah. So anyway, Valerie Leon, who was a very good actress and has a really beautiful voice, is dubbed by June Whitfield for whatever reason. She is a beautiful woman. She's been in several Hammer Horrors at this point. So she's on a bit of a career crest, but she's statuesque, she's Amazonian, and she does that classic, oh, now my glasses and my hair are down, I'm a real woman, and it's just all so obvious. Do you remember the credits of the movie?
Yes. Very, very saucy seaside humour, wasn't it?
Yeah, lots of like seaside postcards of various misses. So there's misfortune, misled. The cartoons were of women in various states of undress with an old man ogling her usually, and some mishap befalling her related to the word. And I mean, it sets the tone for the whole movie, doesn't it? You couldn't. And also, by 1973, we're seeing a lot more boob in a Carry On film than we have seen 10 years earlier. They're becoming much more open about their boobage. Hammer Horror will be the same. You see a lot more boobs. As these old franchises get more desperate, the more boobs come on show, just to try and get men to come and see them with their wives or girlfriends, so it's very booby. But then we talk about in our page 3 episode, the prevalence of boobs at the time. The Sun newspaper in this film. Do you notice that everyone reads the Sun? Because the Sun's only been around a couple of years at this point, So again, a little signal to the audience. These characters are working class characters, basically, and they like boobs. They love boobs.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the older man as sex symbol.
I really struggle with this.
Yeah. Because Sid James, by all intents and purposes, old, wizened, looks like Alan Sugar, but gets the women, and the women seem to find him irresistibly attractive. I mean, it's a kind of running theme throughout the whole of the Carry On series, really, with Sid James. He's cheeky. The beautiful, young, buxom women seem to be drawn to him, and I wonder how much of that is trying to reach out to an older male audience, saying, this is what's attainable to you.
For time immemorial, it has been socially acceptable for an older man to have a much younger girlfriend.
Yeah.
Even it carries on today, in a way that only very recently an older woman with a much younger boyfriend was seen as something of derision or suspicion or hostility.
Predatory.
Yes, exactly. A cougar, the double standard, there is in this particular context. An older man was always allowed to get off with younger. Think of Bill Wyman and Mandy Smith in the 80s. She was
Yeah.
15 or 16. He was in his 50s, but good on him, I'd quite like just a quick mention to, there's a sequence when the mayor is opening a new toilet. Lo and behold, it's only a male toilet. So, of course, June Whitfield's character and her women's libbers arrive to protest as to why there's only a male toilet and not a female toilet. And it astonishes me that even today, in new buildings, the provision of female toilets is still equal to or less than male toilets when women clearly need more toilets than men do.
Yeah.
Men can pee anywhere. It takes them very short space of time, I just thought it was interesting that even in 1973, there are still not enough women's toilets being built. That's where my interests lie, David. Toilets, public toilets. Draw from that what you will.
Yeah, we knew that already. So the end of the film, we come to the actual beauty pageant that's been televised across the nation, and we put into effect Operation Nobble, which is what the operation to sabotage the beauty pageant by the women's libbers was called.
Yeah.
So we established that the judges are there, the mayor's there, the judges are there, the old kind of representing the old establishment, ogling these women as they come on individually. And then we get the sabotage of flea powder in their costumes, so they're all come on itching. And then we get the sneezing powder, so the women all come on stage sneezing. Then we get fairy liquid on the ramp, so they all go sliding down, a little bit like a jelly fight, you know what I mean, with all these women oiled up with fairy liquid and everything.
Yeah.
And then we get the sprinklers coming on. It was very well filmed, I thought, considering carry-on films are filmed on a really tight budget.
Yeah.
So it's the kind of like the final set piece, the final denouement, wasn't it? Which was quite entertaining.
It was, and it was, and as I said, it was nice to see the plan actually coming to fruition, and they got the result they wanted. The beauty contest had to be called off. Everybody had to run out because the sprinkler system went off. So well done them.
Yeah.
Cut to shot of Barbara and Sid James riding away on a motorbike randomly.
That was just random, wasn't it? Can we just take a moment just to appreciate the icon that is Barbara Windsor?
Oh, I mean, just a legend, isn't she?
Absolute legend from that Carry On through to EastEnders, etc. She's just an absolute legend.
If you ever catch some of her pre-Carry On acting roles, also a really good dramatic actress.
Yeah,
who got pigeonholed, and as they, to be fair, as they all did on the Carry On films.
Yeah.
And most of the cast hated the fact that they all got pigeonholed. Kenneth Williams famously hated it. Joan Sims famously hated it. Sid James, a tortured soul, who by this stage is having his relationship with Barbara Windsor. So clearly they're riffing on that script. The dynamics of Carry On are interesting when you read over the years how people grew to just hate the process of it and just...
really not well paid either.
No, not at all, but the British film industry, especially late 60s, early 70s, is in such financial shit that the only way to get work is horror films or carry-on films or dodgy films which got a bit of sex in it. That's they only want to make any money in Britain, which only want people to make. So you get, what tends to happen at this point is you get some horror films and carry-on with amazing casts. Just be like, wow, because no one else is making any other kinds of film.
Let's just sum it up then. Carry On Girls. Did we like it?
I liked it, despite myself, although I can recognise that parts of it are deeply problematic.
Yeah.
But I suspect, as you said, the nostalgia for it allows me to overlook it. But this is not one I'd necessarily want to show my goddaughter, for example.
And I think there's nothing wrong with enjoying it from a nostalgic point of view.
Yeah, and I think this one's a particularly interesting one because of where it stands on feminism and is a response to feminism and responds in a way that's quite surprising, actually, and was quite a nuanced response to feminism, which I was not expecting, and which actually I'd misremembered. So that was a pleasant surprise, but obviously bits of it are just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Some of it's repellent. But I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too. And I wish I could carry a swanee whistle around with me so that at moments of comedy or when somebody pinches my ass, I can go like that, I think we should all have swanee whistles for comedy effect. It would make life so much more fun.
So that was Carry On Girls, and I understand, Lee, you've got some breaking news regarding Carry On Girls.
Breaking news. Indeed, I have. Because I read the other day, or the other week, that they are opening a new West End show. I'm not sure if it's a musical or a stage comedy like the Fawlty Towers show, which is going to be a carry-on stage show, obviously on the back of the success of the Fawlty Towers show. And I read that the script they're basing it on is actually going to be Carry On Girls. So I don't know if they're going to do Carry On Girls for a 2024 audience. I hope they're not going to woke it up, because Fawlty Towers has been hugely successful because it stays very true to the original, or if they're going to stick to the original. But yeah, Carry On Girls lives again in the West End of London, how surprisingly.
Fantastic. Well, let's see if we can afford to go.
Yeah, well, we have to mortgage the house, love, the cost of theatre tickets these days.
Well, exactly. Tell me about it. Well, that's brilliant news. So we'll have a little problematic gays outing to that then when that opens. We might get VIP tickets if we send them this podcast.
Yeah. We'll try it.
We'll try it. We'll try anything, won't we? Professional liggers.
Pause for a podcast. And if you'd like to follow us on our socials, add Podcast Gaze, GAZE, on X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of the above, please do.
Yes, and if you'd like to like or leave a review, then please do. Okay, yeah. So till next week then, Lee. So what we're doing next week?
Well, actually, we don't know, Dave. It's a complete mystery. It's a mystery. You'll have to guess. You'll surprise us all.
Yes, due to unforeseen circumstances. But I mean, I'm loath to say that because people will think we've fallen out and this is going to be the last they hear from us. But no, that's not the case. We've just got a heavy TBC on what we're going to be talking about next week, haven't we?
But it'll be fun, whatever it is, I'm sure.
It will be fun. Okay, so till next week then, Lee. See you next week.
Yes. See you next week, lover. Bye.
Bye.